Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to everyone today. As the slide says, I'm James, and I just want to go into detail what a Chief Design Officer actually does, because it's a bit of a weird job title. I don't think I've seen any other people with the same sort of title. So what I do at Lifeworks is I look at product innovation, and I look at a strategic vision of what, the greatest, with the focus of digital transformation in well-being. And so really, what the major focus that I want to talk about is really how digital can actually support well-being initiatives in the workplace. And so perhaps for those who aren't familiar about Lifeworks, Lifeworks is a global well-being company with employee assistance at the core and heart of what we do. And we have approximately 49,000 customers worldwide. And we cover companies ranging from people with only about 100 people to employee numbers of around 100,000. And so globally, we touch about 15 million employees, managers, and their family members worldwide. I'm not here to talk about Lifeworks, please be reassured. It's really what I want to talk about is, what are our learnings of actually all the things that we've done and we've learned through this journey and this process. And so really I want to talk about practically, tactically, and strategically, how these research learnings and findings and can create a roadmap for well-being for all companies, and a template and a blueprint. And so you'll hear us use this term now that we don't want to just label ourselves as an employee assistance company. Our new focus is actually holistic well-being, and holistic well-being that is proactive, preventative, and employees that love using every day. So in tandem with empathetic support when employees require it and needed it the most. And if there ever were KPIs to actually, hold your well-being program against, those are the sort of ones I would, challenge for us to all measure against. And so just want to talk a bit around kind of like setting the scene of where all this research and findings came down. Stress-related absenteeism and presenteeism is a big challenge for every company today. Wages in real terms have not grown because of inflation, house prices, people are more laden down with student loan debt, and your workplace is becoming more and more diverse every day. Millennials have become the largest portion of the workforce within 3 years, depending on which study you believe. But diversity of care is also important. People are also working longer before retiring. And you couple all these things together, the challenge for us all becomes harder and harder. Connecting to the employee becomes harder and harder. Consumerism, usage patterns, and trends. We must accept that in today's society, people spend a lot of their time on mobile devices. Whether we agree with the quantity of usage or not, we must recognize that there is a place for meaningful and purposeful technology. And yet, we also need to recognize the quantity of noise that technology brings as well, that is also a root cause of stress. And so, one thing we must all recognize is kind of the positioning and the effectiveness and the purpose of technology that we implement in our workplaces. I want to give you a brief case study. In my previous life, I worked in digital transformation projects for banking. And going back to 2010, I remember that when we were looking at mobile banking usage then, it was less than 10% of all users across the business. And so I was doing projects for Lloyds Banking Group and Barclays. And that time, the businesses decided that there was a business case to actually consciously invest in mobile banking. Now, if you fast forward to 2016, over 50% of banking, when compared to not just desktop banking, but also in-branch, is done in mobile right now. The swing is phenomenal. And if you look at that, millennials, the number of the banking kind of like sessions done on mobile goes up to 70%. And people, with people over 55, then that drops to just slightly below 50%. But really, what I want to illustrate is there is a trend and there is a pattern that we must recognize in the workplace. And so, well-being is not just talking about poor health. We believe well-being encapsulates so many different things that affects people on so many different parts. And I think it's great that, a lot of speakers before have talked about the importance on mental health as well. When we say poor health is a challenge at the workplace, we don't just mean physical. We firmly believe that mental health is a big problem and a contributing factor to poor well-being. But also, what we've noticed is that there's a lot of issues with usage, accessibility, utilization of the programs that are rolled out. So, for example, if people cannot use a program, they cannot find the program, you aren't going to generate the usage and the results that you need. Also, driving community in the workplace and positive culture has an effect on well-being as well. If I don't feel a part of the culture and the community in my workplace, I'm going to feel disenfranchised. And finally, there's that ever constant battle with disengagement and discontentment. And what we've learned in our time over in Lifeworks is that the combination of these things are linked intrinsically. And it's so diverse and so different that it's just, when we did a scan across all the different topics that came up, it's abundantly clear that it's a difficult subject to tackle. And so for myself, 8 years ago, I experienced the problems of mental health for myself firsthand. I was diagnosed with mild depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and had panic attacks. And this was 8 years ago. And it was an interesting experience. It was very difficult. It's interesting, yeah. I think coming out from the other side of it, I actually think it was a period of growth for me. But at the time, I remember that I had no structure or no programs to look to. What was the consequence of this? I was off work for 2 weeks because I couldn't deal with the pressure of it, so absenteeism. It took me probably 4 months to actually get over it. Coming into work every day was a real problem. Because of the panic attacks, you can't travel on public transport. You go into the workplace and you're trying to keep a straight face, but then people are, it's not that people aren't understanding, they don't know how to deal with you. And so that was for 4 months. I was on citalopram for 8 months. And so imagine the length of time, and I think I saw a diagram of an iceberg where absenteeism is like the tip. I would say the iceberg is massive below in terms of the loss of productivity because of presenteeism. For me, the first time, that's just one bubble up there, mental health and stress. But being distracted because of, my children or my finances, not really being able to use the technology adopted in the workplace, not really being able to understand the culture or the core values and live and breathe it, can result into that problem of loyalty in the workplace. And so I want to tell these things that they are the causes of poor workplace health and well-being. And the results really are what we've just talked about. High absenteeism, widespread presenteeism, voluntary turnover, and the output is low productivity. It's going to make an effect on your productivity. And so really, if we go through the stats, CIPD say that only 35% of people will turn up to work fit and healthy. And there are numerous reasons why. It's because of chronic illness, financial burdens, stress, and mental health, like I was talking about before, and low usage adoption. And I want to address something. When we look at some sort of studies around utilization of employee assistance programs, because they're kept in the back of the house and people don't know about it, utilization typically is very low. And yet, if you look at any sort of stats around stress, and I've just picked out one from the American Psychological Association, 75 employees will say they're stressed at any given time of the month. The numbers don't really correlate. You've got a 3% here and 75% people saying they're stressed. Too much technology out there that's fighting for attention, too much noise, all disparate, too many logins. I can't remember my password. I don't know what it's for. I don't know what the benefit is. A constant battle on low usage and adoption. A lack of community and culture, again, like what we're talking about. According to the latest Forbes article, 66% of employees still feel undervalued. And 97 of the best workplaces say they have value statements that people understand very clearly. And so they get that accreditation of great place to work. And the sum of all parts is the lack of engagement. And sometimes, we use that term engagement very loosely. Sometimes, it's easy to lose sight of what that word means. But at the end of the day, according to Cass, who and Harvard Business School, who wrote the book around engagement, really it's a 1% increase in staff loyalty because they understand your values, they understand who you are, and they understand their purpose and drive and mission in the workplace can result in 0.5% increase in customer loyalty. And that's a huge thing. If they feel like they love the workplace, they feel like they can get out of bed every day and really, really try their hardest for work, that's going to go all the way out to your customers. And so with firsthand what I experienced with mental health, I could tell you that, cognitively I couldn't really understand what I was doing every day. And it restricts business performance when you come and look at a productivity perspective. And so also dissatisfaction from that perspective, if not solved, will lead to turnover. And employees seeking a different workplace is more understanding, more able to cater for their diverse needs. And so the costs of poor employee well-being, according to RAND Research Europe, £57 billion lost productivity because of poor health and well-being. 25% billion is down to mental health issues alone, according to the Mental Health Foundation. According to the Office of National Statistics, 137 million lost work days last year, 70 million alone on mental health issues alone. And the turnover cost is huge when you tally up all the items from administration fees to the time it takes out to your management, the time it takes to find the person, time to advertise the role, the disruption it has to your department's productivity again. All these things add up according to Oxford Economics. And so I'm taking a very templated and boilerplate view at this, and I'm sure many people have done their own kind of like productivity studies, but if you haven't, here's an illustration. If you're a team size of about 1,000 people with an annual turnover of about 11%, people on an average salary of £28,000, then your productivity loss could be nearly £5 million. And so that's, in this case, is 17.5% of payroll, based on absenteeism, presenteeism, voluntary turnover. So it's clear that companies need an approach that will build on the foundation of culture, engagement, and focus on that keyword holistic well-being, considering all the factors that engage people, that make people happy, and join engagement wellness together. And this is a quote that I got from Josh Burson by Deloitte. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves is, do we have a program proactively right now? Do we have a program very practically right now that solves every single part of these and that we know that people use every day and love using every day? And so delivering effective well-being should be a top initiative for everyone. And so, based on the fact that, we've seen some great case studies of companies who really adopted it at the board level to actually implementing work across the company. And so, really, when we look at the topic of presenteeism, and I want to open this out again. Woody Allen had a famous quote, said, 80% of success in life is just showing up. But I can tell you that, that's not really the case. It's not really getting people to show up at work. If it were that simple, I think our jobs would be a lot easier. It's getting people to succeed at work. So what does success look like? I think that's a common question that, we hear a lot. What does success look like? And we ask ourselves that question all the time. If we look at this, is it just about delivering health, on the basic line for medical benefits, or security in the foundation when people need assistance when they're at times of crisis? Is it just that? Or do we need to go much further? What about the well-being of people in terms of the mental health, in terms of mindfulness, making sure people are aware what the problems and the problems of mental health has, so we remove the stigma away, making sure people have a good work-life balance, are able to adopt a positive mentality rather than a critical mentality, are able to fulfill on the physical perspective, fitness in the basic level, and are they able to reach peak performance in terms of understanding very clearly what their personal goals and achievement are, and how that aligns back to what the company wants them to do, and what greater purpose that has for that person individually. And do they feel empowered? Do they feel recognized each time they do that one thing that reaches back to what the company wants them to do in a very action-orientated perspective. The model for everyday usage and behavior change is, quite frankly, you need to really align everything to be used every day. If you cannot do that, people will not understand, reuse your platform, reuse your solution, reuse your program. If they cannot find it, if they do not know their password, if they don't see it, you're not going to drive any results. It's just the first step and the first hurdle we all need to get over. Second part is once you're able to drive utilization, drive usage, then participation doesn't happen in one big fell swoop. I mean, if we imagine it's like running a marathon, and I've never run a marathon before in my life, I'm not going to try and run even half a marathon tomorrow. I'm going to do all sorts of things to actually get myself prepared. I'm going to work on my nutrition. I might get a coach. I might learn about how to run effectively, properly, so I don't get blisters. I might buy new shoes, etc., etc. And all these things, it doesn't mean that because I can't run the marathon tomorrow, I'm a failure. It just means that people need to progress in small steps. And so that's why usage on an everyday level is extremely important to nurture that. And when you're able to get small steps of behavior change through gentle, bite-sized chunks of participation, then you'll see outcomes done on a longer-term basis, which will lead to your success. And when we look at that word holistic well-being, what does it mean? Now, if we take a very simple model of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and what really motivates all of us and really gets us out of bed every morning and into work because we feel raring to go, is it's not just the basic things such as having a good office environment, salary, compensation, remuneration, whatever we call it, or a roof over your head. And it's not just knowing that in the basic level, I know my benefits in terms of flex benefits offered, or I know that I will be supported in times of need. We need to go much further than this. We need to make sure that we nurture that sense of community, that sense of connectivity in the workplace. That I know what my company stands for, that I know that I have a friend at work so we can battle loneliness and difficulties so that people can support each other. I need to know, from a personal point of view, that I get a feeling of esteem, prestige, and a sense of accomplishment. So I'm recognized every time I do something well. And I know that the company has a culture of recognizing other people that do things well. And then at the tip of everything, to know that I feel fulfilled, that the things that I'm doing contribute to the greater purpose of what the company is doing. And that is joined and aligned. And I think that's a really, really key part. And when we looked at the previous talk around profit and purpose, really, I completely agree with that phrase totally. The whole thing is joined together. And so the everyday well-being model, if we want a strategic approach, is to really map how we engage. Do we connect, guide, support, reward, recognize, implant a sense of mission to employees? Do we fulfill holistic well-being, which is physical, emotional, personal, financial, and professional, in order to drive the right outcomes that we want? There is a step-by-step process that we need to make sure that we tick off. And so what are the type of programs that could contribute to these different parts of well-being? So counseling is a great part. Counseling when to people in times of crisis. Recognition, as we talked about, is a great program. Open culture of trust, that people can actually, and trust goes both ways. The company trusts me to do a great job, and I trust the company that they will take care of me. And so physical well-being as well. Do we make people aware of the type of things they need to do well against their own physical well-being? Do we actually have wellness programs that actually get people out every day doing small steps, behavior change? Do we help and support them in their financial well-being to be more in control of their spending, to be more in control every month of where they are? And do we offer the right amount of programs to support that as well in terms of making the value of their pound stretch further? Are we empathetic to personal well-being in terms of childcare, elder care, and their personal development? And finally, do we think about them professionally in terms of their own personal growth in how we help them communicate better, help them be more focused at work, and help them go through a training program to actually understand what is the expectation that we expect of them. And so future trends that I want to talk about also is, from a data perspective, there are many things that we can do. So looking at the utilization data and then coupling it with HR data or other sources of data, I think the trend needs to go that we need to be more personalized for every individual. Now, I know before I heard themes that, we don't want to track individuals. I'm of the opposite opinion. We need to be able to make a personalized approach to well-being. That doesn't mean tracking the individual to their name, but it means making sure that it's personalized to them and reportable on an aggregate level. There should be rewarding behavior change on a daily basis. And there should be ways that you could utilize artificial intelligence and ways that you can explore on a self-learning perspective to actually drive health coaching on a daily basis. Sorry, and there's a video I'd like to share, sorry.
We're looking for something really special to help us engage our employees. 80% of those being millennial. Lifeworks was the perfect partner for us. We have had many successes right from the very beginning, when we had a really quick sign up from our colleagues, to them spending over £100,000 through online shopping and retail and the bars and restaurant discounts that they have as well. We have over 10 recognitions a day, peer-to-peer recognitions, our colleagues recognising one another, and just in the last month we had 1,000 recognitions in total, so we see that we're having much success with it just in the first 12 months. The main benefit of introducing this recognition has really been bringing to life the stories between departments. Last week, our room service manager recognised the whole pastry team for something really nice that they did for their department. And without Lifeworks, we never would have known about that. And it's those type of stories that really bring the day-to-day life of the teamwork and the hard work in a hotel to life for all of us. Working with Lifeworks has been a huge influence on myself and my HR team as well, through the nature of the app or through the peer-to-peer recognition, and has really made us all, I think, much more highly engaged with what we're doing in a really fun and social and quite dynamic way. We've noticed a big uplift in our culture here at the hotel through using Lifeworks. We post all of our internal communication on there now. We can post photographs of what's going on in around the hotel, which really brings all those special little touches that our colleagues are delivering to our guests every day to life. So not only are we really making our team much more engaged, that's being carried over into the service that they deliver to our guests, which of course is our ultimate goal.
So that was a case study by Savoy, and I apologise, I ran grossly over time.
We were a little bit over. Apologies, James, but I know you're around all day.
Yes.
And I know people will be able to come to the stand and catch you for questions
Thank you very
afterwards.
much.
So thank you very much indeed,
Thank you.
James.